What up, it's Dane. In this video I'm going to be telling you if weight training will help you lose fat a lot faster and what the science is behind it. So let's get into the science. So this study that I'll attach in the description down below had 40 women premenopausal, and they had a body fat percentage of about 30% and no previous weight training experience. Okay, so there were 4 groups and I'll put them on the screen here just so I don't have to bore you too much, and the study ran for about 16 weeks. So the people that were in the diet groups were given macronutrient goals and calorie goals to hit each day based on their body composition and their resting metabolic rate or basal metabolic rate. And the calorie intake was actually adjusted to the resting metabolic rate, which I'll put here so I don't have to bore you too much, and there you could see it was all adjusted. The fat intake was set at 20% of the total calories, and a protein intake was set to 3.1 kg of fat-free mass. And dietary tracking was performed using some website called fatsecret.com. They done full body workouts for about 10 to 12 reps to failure each time. So they trained 3 times per week from week 1 to week 3 in this month, and the last week of the month, so week 4, they trained twice per week. They also rested 60 to 90 seconds like the good old bro would tell you, and they also adjusted how many reps they do and increasing the weight accordingly. Okay, so here are the 3 measurements that they carried out in the study. So the body weight significantly decreased in a diet only group as well as the dieting plus training group. Also, the body fat percentage changes are very similar between all 3 of the groups, whereas diet only, resistance training only, and diet plus resistance training only, there was no really significant difference. The fat mass also decreased in all 3 of the groups. However, as you probably could have guessed it, in the groups that done the diet only plus the resistance training plus diet lost more weight overall, or should I say fat mass. As well as this, talking about lean mass, it only increased in a training only group. The rest of metabolic rate also had a slight increase in all the groups, but in my opinion this was more of a measurement error. So all of the groups actually had a reduction in fat mass. However, you probably could have guessed that, right? When you combine training plus a diet, you really did maximize the fat mass. The resistant training alone group actually increased lean body mass. However, when it was combined with a diet, this effect was completely eliminated and it didn't even happen again. Now this clearly backs up the evidence that I tell most people, is that even if you're untrained and you're in a calorie deficit, you're not in a calorie surplus anymore, or anything like that, it does become a lot harder to build more muscle mass. And it's important that I point out here that lean mass and muscle mass are not the same thing, right? Lean mass is stuff like internal organs, water content, where muscle mass is actually the muscle. And the way you can measure the muscle size is through ultrasound and the MRI, which they did not do in the study. So the lean mass can actually decrease through, let's say, fluid loss, so basically water, where the body protein, so the protein in a muscle, actually stays the same. And one thing that's very important to notice here is that the changes in the lean mass that occurred in the study did not affect RMR significantly at all. Now, the reason I'm bringing this point is because, let's face it, a lot of people tell you build muscle first, and then that muscle will require energy, and therefore you burn more calories during the day, allowing you to eat more, right? Your resting metabolic rate will increase a little bit over 24, let's say, to 48 hours, because after training you spike your muscle protein synthesis. As we all know, that's the process of building new muscle tissue. Now, once you've done that, you've either got to repair the muscle tissue and you've got to build new muscle tissue, and this all takes energy. Therefore, that resting metabolic rate has increased a little bit, but only for a short period of time. So again, to back the point up, just like I mentioned a minute ago, added muscle does not significantly elevate your resting metabolic rate, and your metabolic rate in general, man, you can't really increase this stuff much at all. It's more of the internal organs that are going to elevate it. So for every pound of muscle you gain, you basically burn 6 extra calories. So if you gain like 24 pounds of muscle, you'd burn like 144 calories. Just extra, right? And these results also show that in untrained individuals, a body recomp, basically building muscle and losing fat, is obviously possible, that we know. But like I always say, possible and optimal is completely different story. The body fat percentage change probably would be like 1% and a very long time, right? So that's why in most circumstances, I just recommend someone either cut or bulk. In most circumstances. One very important point of this study is that the lean mass did not decrease in the diet only group. That's the key word here. And the reason I said this is because they didn't even do any weight training, right? It's the diet only group, and we know that weight training is very important in order to retain a lean muscle tissue. I'll explain. The reason being is because when you're in a calorie deficit, less calories means less muscle protein synthesis. The things that spike muscle protein synthesis is increasing our protein intake and also going to the gym, lifting some big ass weights. That will also increase it. Now the two factors that probably led to this conclusion that they didn't lose any lean body mass is because number one, they had a high protein intake, and number two, they had a small calorie deficit. And like I always say, the bigger the calorie deficit, the higher the likelihood of you losing muscle mass, because again, less calories, man, means less muscle protein synthesis. Okay, so one big limitation of the study is that they did also self-report as also most of the time people underreport, and most commonly this is overweight people and a lot of women, right? And this is not being sexist or anything like that. Research has shown this, right? So they did underreport because the weight loss that they got did not match their 500 to 600 energy deficit that they should have been in. And a small deficit also made it a lot harder to identify the difference between the lean mass and the rest of metabolic rate. Hence why those increases in that, it probably was a measurement error as well, because the smaller the deficit, the harder it is to detect these two things. And probably the biggest limitation is the very small sample size. It was about 5 people in a diet plus training group, which is a very small number in order to pull a conclusion from that. And again, they used a DEXA scan in order to measure their lean mass. And like I've been saying, lean mass is not muscle tissue, right? So how are you gonna know if you like keeping muscle or losing muscle here? And one very important thing to realize is that this was based on like obese people, premenopausal women. Not that we've got anything against them, but it might be a lot different in younger people and individuals that train in the weight room and all this kind of stuff, right? Okay, so what can we pull from this study and this science? We can pull this. Number one is that resistance training combined with diet is superior for fat loss, whereas if you just do one or the other, right? Now this is probably quite common sense to most people. And number two, going against what most people say is that, wait mate, you got to bulk up because, you know, you got to add more muscle tissue, you burn a lot more calories, you'll be a fat burning furnace. This is completely bullshit in some sense, because like I said before, the amount of muscle tissue that you add compared to the amount of calories you burn is a very small number. It's insignificant. Okay, so the conclusion that we can pull from this scientific study, and as you may know, I don't like to pull conclusions from like one study here and one study there. I like to use most of the time meta-analysis. And number two, probably one of the most important points is that if it works for you, if you enjoy it, do it again and again, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Now, to get really down to nitty gritty, what the study really shows me, and probably all of you as well, is that adding more muscle tissue is not going to make you a fat burning machine. And most importantly, the title of the video, will like weight training help you lose fat? And the answer is yes, but probably not by a large amount. Most important factors that you need to consider is your protein intake and the amount of calories you are consuming. If you're looking for a larger amount of fat loss, have a bigger calorie deficit, and obviously expect maybe some muscle loss. Whereas if you want to go for a slower approach and lose less fat but retain a lot of muscle tissue, then have a smaller calorie deficit, just like I say in most of my videos. So there you go. If you enjoyed the video, let me know. Watch the videos here, maybe they will help you out as well. Stay positive, stay smiling, let's get it, and I'll see you in the next one.